Well,
Good idea.
Good thing
You didn't miss anything. You didn't miss anything. Nothing was revealed. But see, you remembered in time.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm really sorry about that.
I do that all the
It's
time, I
fine,
have to
it's
say.
fine.
So many times. I have stories about my camera.
Too, right?
I went out to the desert one time to film this one thing. I brought a ton of camera equipment, and the one thing I didn't bring was this little thing about this big. It was a little bolt that holds the camera on the tripod. And that pretty much messed up the entire shoot. So now I'm like using like string and tape to try to hold the camera on the tripod. It's just that one piece of equipment, you know?
Yeah.
You know what? I didn't think it was something I was going to do.
Mm-hmm.
I loved movies and I loved shooting my own movies. Going back to my friends, we would always make our own little Super 8 movies, and we'd make pretty ambitious films. Like my friend took his whole downstairs in his mom's house, well, his house, but his mom let him, and turned it into like the bridge of the Starship Enterprise with cardboard and stuff like that. So we made movies and stuff like that. It really wasn't until the last little bit of high school that my grandmother was actually reading an article in the Denver Post that was all about this school called Cal Arts, and she said, hey, this might be something you want to do. They're training artists to replace artists that are leaving Disney Studios. They're retiring, and everybody, because they were all pretty much the same age, it was all like, you know, leaving at the same time. So that sounded like a great idea. So I got my portfolio together. I never had a portfolio before. I just tried to figure it out, and I sent it, and I actually got accepted into that program. So
That's awesome.
that was where I was like starting to steer towards movies right there.
Where was the first animation studio you were working at? Was that at Disney?
You know, that's actually, yeah, that's a good question, because I wanted to go to Disney. Everybody was kind of gearing up to go there, and a lot of my friends had gone there. But at the time I was in school, Disney was going through a strike, and they weren't hiring anyone. So when I finished school, I stayed for the whole 4 years, and the only place I really could go to was a place called Marvel Productions. And they weren't doing like comics or something like that. That was the California branch that did Saturday morning cartoons. So the first job I had was working on Muppet Babies. And I was a character designer and a modeler, which means anything in the movie, whether it be the simplest little thing like a cookie crumb or something super complex like a big made-up spaceship, I drew that from all sorts of different angles so they could model it, color it, and send it to wherever it was they were animating it. It was some place like Taiwan or someplace that was animated, doing the actual animation. So I did modeling for like 3.5 years before I got laid off. Marvel was bought by another company. I was one of the last people hired, so that means I was the first one laid off. And that's when a friend of mine called and said, there's one opening at Disney. They want to start a development department. And so I applied for that one position, and I got in.
That's
so,
awesome.
Yeah.
Well.
Do you want to maybe start from the beginning? Because sorry about that.
Oh yeah, we can
Do you
go.
wanna tell us again?
Go, yeah.
I'm sorry.
Okay. So.
I don't remember the question, so do it all over.
Did you like being on newspaper? I think that's. one of the
Oh
questions.
yeah, I have to say, I don't think that was quite the question, but that's a really good one. I was on the newspaper staff, and I was the cartoonist. They did not trust me to write articles, although I think I might have been able to if I really had to. The funny thing is now I write all the time. I've actually written some movies, but I loved being the cartoonist on staff. It was they needed a cartoonist. I drew cartoons. It worked out really well. I got like credit for the class, and it was pretty low pressure until I waited till the last minute, and then I was the one staying up all night getting my cartoons done. But I loved it. I loved working on newspaper because I didn't like long to be on a newspaper staff, but I liked the people I worked with. Everybody I worked with, my friends, a lot of my friends were on that staff, and they were just very, very smart people. And I guess at that point, looking back on it, I learned the value of having smart friends that liked the same things you liked, because I would say that shaped a great deal of my future, because we would constantly talk about like things that we wanted to do. We'd talk about ideas. We'd stay up late playing Dungeons and Dragons. You know, we weren't delinquents. We worked hard, and it was just a good crowd to be with, and I liked being with them. So I felt like maybe being with smart people would make me smart by association. So they were great.
All right. We know that you direct and write, but how involved with the animation are you today? Like with your current movies?
I go to what's called animation dailies every day. And so if you direct an animated film, on a real film set, For a live action film, you'd have a director, a cameraman, the actors, you'd have sound guys, lighting guys, you'd have the grip guys that move the camera and stuff like that. Imagine all those departments are all separated. And what I would do is nothing happens before we record the actor. So once we've written and storyboarded, the very next thing we do is we record the actor. That recording comes back, and I go to the animators and I pitch the scene to them, and we talk about how the scene is going to be. And that's like a director telling his actors what they're going to do. The animators are our actors, and so what I'll do then, they'll go away, and within a few days or sometimes a week or so, those scenes will start coming in. And we go to dailies every single day because there's a huge animation staff and we have a lot of sequences going in at the same time. We have overlapping scenes. So I'll come into animation dailies and they'll say, okay, here's the scene where Grug, finds out that the cave has collapsed. And we'll see that piece of animation. And we'll all talk about it. If we love it, it's done. If we want changes, we'll give changes right there. So I'm very involved in animation, but I try not to tell them how to animate. And because I'm not an animator, so I made a decision a long time ago to talk about animation with the animators like you would talk to an actor. And so I ask them I tell them what I want, and we talk about it, and then I let them go and bring back that animated moment. And I will inevitably have something in my head, but I really won't talk about that. If they bring a scene back and it isn't what I thought it should be, but if it does what it needs to do, then we're done. So I think it gives people a lot of room to bring creativity to the party.
All right.
Yeah.
Would you like to be an animator? Like, do you want to be part of that, or are you fine with being a director?
I like being a director. I went into story when I came to Disney. I got into the story department. I was in production. I should say development for only a little while before I went into the story department. I love story, and that's the thing I still do. Because I'll write and direct, but when I get a chance, I'll actually switch over and do storyboards when I get a chance. There are moments in this movie where there's no dialogue. And one of the neat things about being a writer and a director is that you can actually engineer into the story places where there's no dialogue. If you're working for a writer and they write a scene and you think to yourself, I think this would be better if the characters were just quiet and the animators took over. I mean, we've all seen movies with scenes where nothing is really being said at all. And those are some of the most powerful moments in the film. The acting is carrying it. So a writer will tend to write their way through those scenes, and we can engineer in places where nothing's going on, where it's just music. So I think for that reason I love being in story. I think it'd be great if I could animate, but it's one of the things I've never really desired.
Really?
Yeah, it's like for me story's the thing.
Well.
Yeah.
All right, I have one last question. Which of all of your films are you most proud of?
This is a very good question. Somebody asked this once before, and it sounds like the politically correct answer, but like my children, I love them all. There are parts of different movies that I like very much. Like there are parts of Mulan that I like. There are parts of Lilo and Stitch I'm very proud of. Each movie I've worked on that I've been involved in deeply has things that I'm very proud of. And I think with Croods, there's a moment in Croods where these cavemen who have never seen the night sky because they live in a cave and they never go out at night. There's a moment in the movie where they go to the top of a tree and they see the night sky for the first time. And it's a transformative moment. It's also a place in the movie where the story pivots. It actually turns at that point, and that's the point at which the Croods have changed pretty much forever. Just that last, piece of the puzzle for them about life or whatever changes everything for them. But I have a little moment in all these different movies that I really like.
Which one do you like watching the most?
I recently rewatched Lilo and Stitch, and I also rewatched Mulan, and I was surprised how easy it was to watch them. I think that's a tribute to the people who made the movie. One of the interesting things about being a director is that I can talk about the movie like a fan because there's so much I don't do. I don't animate. I don't do the lighting. I tell people what we should be doing because what I do, the only thing I do is story. When I talk about lighting, we talk about the lighting because what sort of lighting will do the story justice right here, right? I always come at it from a story point of view. So when the lighting comes in, I'm like a fan. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's amazing, that's incredible. And when the layout department, they move the camera, when they move the camera, I can be a fan. And when the effects department brings in a mega effect, or even a very simple effect, I can just freak out. So a lot of times you'll catch me talking like, oh, isn't this cool? This is so amazing. Well, it's because I didn't really do it. You know, I was there and I told everyone what we should be doing. But I didn't do it. So. What was the question?
Which do you enjoy watching the most?
Mulan, actually.
Mulan?
I mean, I love watching this one. I think more distance allows me to look at it more like somebody who didn't work on it. And so when I rewatched Mulan, I was actually thinking to myself, oh, that's fair. Oh, that's really clever. Oh, that's really cool. You know, I was like, oh, I love that. That was really good. So I had some perspective on it. So I think that I don't have that sort of perspective on the cruise yet. I mean, I love the cruise.
Yeah.
I love it very much, but I can't yet watch it like somebody from an audience. I gotta tell you, I really wonder about the editors, because I see the film a lot, and the editors see it all the time, every day, over and over again, and I don't know how they keep their perspective. Actually, I found out something. When I draw, here's a trick. When I draw, I learned a long time ago that if I turn that piece of paper over, you can see the drawing fresh. Because as you're drawing, you're perhaps building in quirks that aren't right or good. I can have like a head where the eyes aren't even. I frequently draw like a face and the eyes are a little bit uneven, and I won't notice it because it's just something you just don't notice when you're drawing it. But if you turn the piece of paper over, you'll see it, and it'll suddenly become glaring because you see it like it's fresh when you reverse it. I found out, we were visiting with James Cameron one day. He came in to talk to us about Avatar and some things he was doing, and I found out that he reverses the print on his films for entire sequences, and he'll watch the sequence in reverse. And he sees it fresh, and he'll see things that he lost perspective on, and suddenly he'll see a continuity problem, or he'll see just a framing issue or a camera movement, and it's the same thing. So if you can do that, reverse the.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thanks.